welcome back to Eye on Horror, episode 39, or season 3, episode 3. Woohoo! All right, I'm your host, James J. Edwards, and with me, as always, your other host, Jacob Davison. What's going on, Jacob?
Podcasting from my comfy bed.
You too, but well, also with us is your other host, John Correa. How you doing, John?
Oh, doing well. I got included very quickly this week.
Well, I was going to say, both of you are from your comfy beds.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a mirror image of the pictures of you two.
Hey, man, if you're gonna do something, do it in comfort.
That's exactly what I've been saying.
Jacob has always podcasted from his bed, but Korea just discovered the magic this season.
Yeah. It's let me tell you something. It's a game changer, especially when you have the medical fold-up bed like I do. It's glorious.
Yeah, James, you got to get in on this action.
I do have one of those medical fold-up beds, but when we record, my wife and the dogs are always on it, and that wouldn't be good for sound. So I'm at a table in a hard chair.
See, you're nicer to your significant other. I kick her out. Poor Lindsay is like sleeping on the couch right now, and she's gonna listen to this episode and be like, how dare you call me out on this? But I'm the jerk in this situation, so yeah.
Nah, you're cool. Let's jump right in to what's been going on lately. Korea saw Birds of Prey.
Nice. Oh yeah, I did.
Let's talk Birds of Prey. What's happening with Birds of Prey, bro? Did I just call you bro?
You did.
Bro.
Did you?
Bro.
Dude, but I'm not sleeveless this week. Like,
all right. Well, let's Bros of Prey. I mean, Birds of Prey, it's actually called Harley Quinn Birds of Prey now.
Yep.
It's not Birds of Prey, the whatever emancipation of Harley.
Fantabulous Emancipation of Harley.
Yeah, because that was the problem with its marketing, was its title. I mean, here's the thing, is like, it is a Harley Quinn movie. It's more about Harley Quinn than the Birds of Prey, but...
It absolutely is, yeah.
But also, like, Birds of Prey and the Fabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn was an awesome title, so I don't know.
And also, who didn't know it was a Harley Quinn movie? I mean, that was not the problem. It was not, people, what's that Harley Quinn movie? What's that called? No. Anyway, what'd you think of it?
I loved it. I really liked what they did with a lot of the characters. The film set its own tone. Like, there's people out there that are just saying it's DC's Deadpool, but it's like, if you're going to have a fun, crazy person, yeah, that's basically how they're going to be portrayed, is what those two characters have set. But I mean, it's so much fun. The action was fantastic. What they did with the characters, I like that each one was dealing with their own emancipation, their own getting out of like a terrible toxic relationship, whether it's with an ex, a coworker, or themselves. Really, like, I really loved what they did with Huntress.
Or an employer, Black Canaries,
Oh, yeah. But Huntress was awesome. Like, Mary Elizabeth Winstead needs her own action franchise now. Like, where's her John Wick movie franchise? Because she was killer. And on top of that, I really liked what they did with her character, in that, her character is that she spent her whole life training for this moment of revenge. So she has had like little to no real social interaction. So anytime she's with a group of people, she's just awkward as fuck.
And the press has nicknamed her the Crossbow Killer, and she's like, no, I'm Huntress.
I'm Huntress. And they're all like, that's a cool name, but you're the Crossbow Killer.
What do you think of Ewan McGregor as Black Mask?
Oh, dude, like, you were right. Like, he definitely like tapped into some Adam West villainry. But it was he was so over the top, but it almost had to be to match like Harley Quinn. If you had someone like, I don't know, Tom Hardy's Bane in that movie, it would have been ridiculous. It would not have worked. But he matched and also kept the craziness a bit grounded, And there were some genuinely awesome moments with him. That, because I got kind of sucked in because my crush on Ewan McGregor. First of all, him wearing the guy liner just like made me question a lot of things.
Yeah,
but also within that scene, that was the scene where he made the woman dance on the table. He went from like this charismatic villain that you really like to just like, oh wait, shit, no, this guy is the bad guy very quickly, and one of the most uncomfortable scenes I've seen in a while.
Well, that was necessary because all of the Birds of Prey and Harley Quinn, they're anti-heroes. You know, they're not really, I mean, for lack of a better word, they're not likable, but you have to make Ewan McGregor less likable so that you root for the Birds of Prey.
Oh, yeah. And I also really like that none of the focus when it came to anything sexual was like degrading towards the main characters. Like there was no like real, like, you know how a lot of times when like female fighting is taking place on movies, they stay hard on like the butt and stuff, and like there's a real male gaze with it. They don't really do that to them. In fact, anytime there's like 2 scenes where people are like actually being like sexual or anything, and they're both in like this very uncomfortable rapey tone, and I think that's very I thought that was very brave of them and very bold to do, because you know it's a big action film. There's no love story, there's no, you know, will they won't they with anybody. It's just, no, these women are going through shit and they're coming out strong.
What you say, it's the female gaze. It was a woman director that did it.
Kathy Ann, she's great.
When you look at it, I mean, even with the costuming, you look at Harley Quinn's wardrobe in Birds of Prey versus Suicide Squad, and there's no push-up bra. There's no, well, I mean, there are hot pants, but they're not, I mean, it's different. It's like they're not hypersexualized at all, which just lets them tell the story. It's a superhero, for lack of a better word, because it's actually a supervillain story. But I think calling it DC's Deadpool is right on, because it has that kind of tongue-in-cheek thing, but it still is a pretty kick-ass superhero movie.
Yeah, I loved it so much, and especially the inclusion of roller derby in it was just so much fun. Like, as soon as she was like, all right, you're gonna do the Black Canary cry, and I was like, she's on the roller skate, she's gonna use to put, you know, I just caught myself almost spoiling a great moment. Sorry.
At the press screening I went to of Birds of Prey, they had invited some of the local roller derby leagues to it. And my wife actually used to skate with one of the leagues down here. So there were a lot of familiar faces in that audience, because they had reached out. They're like, it was kind of fun to see roller derby, because, I mean, you had Whip It, but you don't get it represented on screen that often, you know, the sport of roller derby. So it was kind of fun to see that too. Plus it fits so well with the character of Harley Quinn.
Oh, it was a perfect fit. Like when I just love that whole sequence where it's like, oh, she's on the market and not being protected by Joker, and everyone's taking their grievances out, and like one of them is just someone that you saw in an earlier roller derby scene that she fucked up just coming at her.
And her big priority is to save her breakfast sandwich.
Oh man, it's so crazy. Like that movie boosted egg sandwich future so much. Like just everybody in the country was getting egg sandwiches.
Well, that sandwich looked incredible.
It did.
When she was protecting it. I'm like, oh, just take a bite.
That looked like the most delicious fucking breakfast sandwich.
Yes.
With just the right amount of hair.
Yeah, no, that was really good.
What else has been going on? You guys see anything else new? I haven't seen anything.
Well, it wasn't a movie, but I was at the opening night gala of Slashback Video 3, The Beginning.
Ooh.
The Beginning? Okay.
Yeah, it's a prequel.
Well, and it is part 3, so that's about when the prequels, you know, if Paranormal Activity taught us anything.
Yep.
How was that?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. You know, well, as you know, Slashback Video is kind of a art gallery exhibition they do at the Mystic Museum up in Burbank, and it's like a recreation of an old school like mom and pop style video store, but it's all horror VHSs and like authentic like classic horror VHSs from numerous collectors and people and stuff, with like posters and display items, and you know, they got a lot of photo sets that you can take pictures in, and yeah, and that's the thing. They got like this mascot slasher character named Tapehead. Is like this skeleton with like a tape mask over, like a VHS tape over his face as a mask, and so it gives him some backstory, and it is very classic slasher style. And yeah, they also have a lot of like individual art pieces from people who make like custom VHS art displays. Like one of my favorites from last night is like somebody remodeled a VHS tape of Slumber Party Massacre Part 2 with the drill and blood coming out of the front cover, and so like little statuettes and stuff. And they also had a photo set recreation of Freddy's Revenge.
Oh, nice.
So, like, you can get your picture taken in the lead guy's bedroom with, like, Freddy coming out of the bed, and it's got, like, all the props and stuff from there. And, yeah, it's just a lot of fun. You know, it's a great hangout, and it's going to be there until June, so there's plenty of time to check it out.
Yeah.
That was actually my next question. How long is it going to be there? But that's quite a run there. That's like a good 4 months. So
it's art. It deserves to be seen.
I lied. I did see something.
What'd you see?
It's a VOD title right now called The Night Clerk. Have you guys heard about this?
No.
It's Ty Sheridan plays this autistic boy who he's a night clerk in a hotel, so it's not just a clever name. And but he rigs the rooms with these cameras so he can watch the guests when he goes home. By day, he lives in his mom's basement and he basically spies on the guests of this hotel. And he sees one of them get murdered. So he like rushes to the hotel thinking that he could stop it. And because of that, he becomes a suspect in this thing. And they don't have any evidence to charge him. So, you know, but John Leguizamo is the detective, and he's like, I got my eyes on you, boy. So,
playing the most John Leguizamo role possible.
So he keeps on spying on people, and from Knives Out, Ana de Armas, is that her name?
Yeah.
She shows up, and he spies on her, but he also makes friends with her, the night clerk guy, and he starts thinking she's going to be the next victim. So he's got to kind of stop the murder without incriminating himself further and protecting his little empire of voyeurism that he's got going. But it's a creepy little movie. As you might suspect, his depiction of an autistic person is a little problematic. He's almost more like a Tourette's guy. You know, he'll run around like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh, you know, and you're like, you know, I mean, he's got that intense autistic focus, you know, that those people always have, like that singular focus, and he's got that down because he's got his video cameras and he imitates the guests and stuff. But it gets almost cartoony with him. He's not Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man, put it that way. But it's a pretty creepy little movie.
It's a hard balance for actors to get that. I mean, it's been touched upon before, where it's like if you go too much with it, it becomes a caricature. You know, it's
a risk to take for any actor to do that. Like Edward Norton in Motherless Brooklyn played a Tourette's guy, and he actually did it pretty well, I think, but he was also real restrained about it, and I don't think Ty Sheridan is as restrained as he should be with it, but you know, he took his shot. Yeah,
I mean, as long as they don't do the old Hollywood trope of making them really good at like that's something, you know, to try to make out, because that's so played out at this point.
Idiot savant.
Yeah,
the Forrest Gump syndrome.
Yeah, I know. He obviously he's smart enough to get these cameras set up and stuff, but they don't make that like a big plot point where he can imitate the guests of the hotel. So he goes on the phone and imitate. I mean, it doesn't become like Forrest Gump where he is just good at everything he touches. So that, I guess that's a plus.
I finally watched the new Addams Family movie.
Oh, what do you think?
Yeah. You know, I thought it was good. It was solid. You know, it's definitely more in line. I know a lot of people like myself grew up on the live action ones, and you can't beat Raul and Angelica Houston as Gomez and stuff. But I do want to say, I really want to see the voice cast of this movie do a live action one, because I think
Oscar Isaac
and Charlize Theron would make an incredible live action Gomez and Morticia. But I one of the things that I thought was really nice is that they really stuck with like the comics. Like they really went back to the original source with how the characters looked was exactly how they looked in the old strips and stuff, which a lot of people complained about because they're like, Gomez is this very sexual character and he made him look like that. Well, that's how he looked like in the comics.
Yeah,
so it works. and he's still a very sensual person in the movie.
Suave.
But it's ridiculous, and over the top. But that's the Addams Family. That's the whole point of them, is to be super over the top and zany.
Did either of you guys bite the bullet and see Fantasy Island?
No.
I didn't either.
We hyped it up so much last episode.
Honestly, it's one of those. I really just have not had the time to go to the movies unless it's a presser. So they didn't screen it for press. And I fully intend to see it someday.
Yeah, I just was finishing. I just finished up on my last show, so I haven't been around. Like I think I worked a solid, between that and a few other gigs, a solid 2 weeks straight without a day off. So I haven't had time to go to the movies.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I've actually been to the movies quite a bit. Last week, I got a double dose of Joe Bagos films. I saw VFW for the third time. Then on last Tuesday, I saw they were doing a screening of Bliss, his other movie from last year, in 35mm at the Alamo Draft House, and where I sat front row center to have my face melted right off my skull.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and yeah, with those trippy movies, like I don't know, like if I have the chance, I do like to sit as close to the screen as possible. Ever since I saw Beyond the Black Rainbow front row center, and just really melts your face off.
I finally watched The Long Weekend. I've been on a real big Ozploitation kick lately, and have you guys seen The Long Weekend?
No. But what's the tagline?
I don't know if I have. There are so many movies like that, like Savage Weekend, and so remind me of what it is, because I may have seen it.
So The Long Weekend is this Australian-made film from the 70s, and it's about this couple, and they're terrible people, but they go on a camping trip because the husband they go on a trip because they're trying to repair their relationship, and the husband basically forces them to go camping. And they're such assholes. Like, you can't stress this enough. The entire, they're not likable characters at all. And that's done on purpose. Like, they're just constantly fighting with each other. Everything they do is against nature. Like, you see them driving down the road, and, like, the husband throws his cigarette out the window, and it catches fire in a bush. He runs over a baby kangaroo, doesn't even, flinch. They set up their camp, and, basically, it's man versus nature, and the tagline for it is their crimes were against nature, and nature found them guilty.
Oh, that's a good one.
Got it. Okay, I have not seen it, but I've heard about this movie.
Dude, it's incredible. There's a scene where the wife finds an eagle egg, and she just holds on to it, and then later on the eagle attacks the husband, and it's a really well done eagle attack scene, and afterwards she's just that's weird. Because he's in denial for the first half of it, and he just keeps killing things. There's I'll finish the eagle thing. So then he gets attacked, and she's like, "Oh, it's because she's coming for the egg. She wants the egg." He's like, "All right, give back the egg." And she's like, "No." Just takes the egg and throws it against a tree and smashes it. And he's like, "The fuck's the matter with you? That was a living thing." And she's like, "Ah." It was just why? But exactly. But the single greatest moment of, because it ramps up really, really intensely, and it's awesome. I highly recommend Long Weekend to anybody. But the single greatest moment, because it's these two horrible humans destroying nature, nature retaliating, is when they first get to the camp, the husband is chopping down this tree. He's just hacking at it with an axe, and she's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Chopping a tree." And she's like, "Why?" And he's just like, "Why not?" And that's it. It's just oh yeah, it's a perfect showing of what these people are doing, where it's just I'm just doing this because I can. Fuck nature. I'm a human. I'm better than this. I can fuck it up, and that's okay. But it's just so fucking funny. Why are you chopping that tree? Because I want to. It is available on Blu-ray in the US from Synapse, and it's a great restoration. It looks fantastic. Highly recommend it.
Well, let's roll through to our topic, which is going to it'll be out by the time you hear this. It will be in theaters. The Invisible Man.
Leigh Whannell's Invisible Man.
Leigh Whannell's Invisible Man, yes, starring Elizabeth Moss. None of us have seen this version of it yet.
I'm actually seeing it tonight.
I'm seeing it Tuesday, so we will be seeing it. You're okay. So,
Yeah.
so if we had waited until Wednesday to record, we would have all seen it. But none of us have seen it yet. But by the time you hear this, you may have even seen it. It is coming soon. But it got us thinking of all of the other Invisible Man, and we use that in quotes because some of them are remakes or, inspired bys, and others just are movies that have invisible men or beasts or entities in them. And we decided there was enough to do a whole show on it, so we're going to let's start with the OG, which is Universal's The Invisible Man.
Yes, this is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I had so much fun revisiting it.
Of all the Universal movies, most of them, like Frankenstein's monster or the Wolfman or the Mummy, the monsters are kind of sympathetic.
Yeah.
Not the Invisible Man. He is a dick. And that's what makes him so rad.
I rewatched the original Invisible Man, and there were so many things that I picked up that I never. And again, this is one of my all-time favorites. I've seen this movie dozens of times, and there's so much I picked up. Like, first of all, Invisible Man has the highest body count of all the Universal classic monsters. Like, he is the deadliest one, and yet he is the most human. There was nothing. The only thing that changed about him really was that he became invisible. Like, he's not like he became another beast, or he was assembled from body parts, or was turned into, he didn't have to kill people. He could have just been like, oh shit, I'm invisible, and like worked on himself, and to not become invisible. But instead he gave in to the madness that comes with it. And like, I thought that was the most endearing thing on this rewatch, was that the second he's given this, he's just like, all right, I'm giving into it, and really, he kicks a baby carriage over.
Ooh.
This is a 1930s movie, and you literally see him you don't see him, but you see like
you see the carriage.
You see him basically drop kick a baby carriage, and he just runs off gleefully, like just like poof. And then the next shot is him prancing around in pants, going, here we go, gathering nuts in May. Like, I love this movie so much.
It's been a while since I've seen it, but also, doesn't he want to take over the world or something?
Eventually, yeah, he wants to, because he says that he's developing the thing, and imagine how rich we can get in the bidding war that will happen. Imagine entire armies of a nation of invisible men taking over. I think he more just wants to profit off of it, but he needs to become visible again in order to do that.
And also, he does have a very iconic look, in the sense, like, remember, he's like trying to disguise himself or go incognito, and he's all wrapped up in bandages and with the glasses and the robe.
Yeah.
So that is So even though he's invisible, he still has a rather iconic look to him that, when it comes to the Universal monsters.
I would argue it's the coolest look out of all of them. I always thought him and Creature from Black Lagoon always were the coolest looking of the classics.
Yeah, it's very suave.
Yeah. Plus, like, Claude Rains just, like, sold it with his voice acting more than anything. Just that maniacal laugh,
We'll get to that when we get a little later on, because I have another famous actor who played an Invisible Man, and you barely see him, but he sells it with his voice. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
So now, after The Invisible Man, was The Invisible Woman directly after it? Was it like the sequel?
So, if we're gonna go with like that series, there was a direct sequel that came, because the original Invisible Man came out in 1933. And then there was a direct sequel in 1940 that was Invisible Man Returns.
Okay.
But it's a different character, different people. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is Vincent Price in that one? Yeah, Vincent Price is in it. It's decent. The Invisible Man series, I will admit, is very like peaks and valleys in not only tone, but like quality as well. which is interesting as hell because the original had such amazing special effects and it still looks good and works today. You know, a lot of the techniques they used. But yeah, Invisible Man Returns, that was then followed by Invisible Woman, which was like a comedy of sort, which then followed up with Invisible Agent because, you know, by that, Invisible Woman came out in 1940 as well, and it wasn't really connected to the series. But Invisible Agent was just like 1942, World War II's in full swing. Yeah, we're doing it. We're going to have Invisible Captain America, you know, essentially. And then I've never seen Invisible Man's Revenge, or I think I might have as a kid on the old VHS tapes. But yeah, I don't remember a whole lot of that. But he does pop up in the Abbott and Costello Meet series with the Universal Classic Monsters, including the iconic, you know, I think it was Meet Frankenstein at the very end when he pops up. And like Abbott and Costello are in the boat and they're like, oh, we finally escaped everything. And all of a sudden you see a cigarette being smoked. It's just like, floating cigarette bit.
Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, I guess you know, there was a bit of a franchise to the Invisible Man like the other Universal monsters, but wasn't quite as iconic as some of the others like Frankenstein or Dracula.
Yeah, I mean, I think they explored so much with the original Invisible Man. It's hard to really do more with that. It's kind of like RoboCop. You know how the first RoboCop movie was really good, and it's because it was like a full arc, a full story with that. And then all of a sudden, it's like, well, he's human again. How can we push his character forward or move him forward? And it's like, well, we have to kind of take a few steps back with his character arc, and it kind of you couldn't continue with the original Claude Rains' Invisible Man with the sequel, so you had to set up a new ones, in which case you're kind of redoing what you've done before. And that's what a lot of Invisible Man projects and different and rip-offs have, or knockoffs or inspired bys have done, which is kind of rehashing that initial story. But you know, the series itself it's still a lot of fun. Like I said, there's something in there for everyone, whether it's something that's super schlocky, you know, like with Invisible Man's Revenge, or you want to go with a more comedic Invisible Woman, or super comedic with Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man, which I believe was the last one of them meeting Universal Monsters.
Well, I mean, the Invisible Man movies may not have been as iconic, but that was... I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this. Isn't that the most movies they made for one franchise? Because there were only 3 Creature from the Black Lagoon, 3 Frankenstein. I mean, not counting the Abbott and Costello ones, but there were 5 Invisible Man movies.
True.
I think Frankenstein actually has the most.
Yeah.
Well, what are they? There's Frankenstein, Bride of, Son of.
And then there's House of Frankenstein.
The Ghost of Frankenstein.
Are those Universal or are those...
Yeah, those are all Universal.
Okay, there's Universal. Okay,
Ghost,
so maybe Frankenstein
House,
went further.
And then versus the Wolfman, of course.
Right.
Okay.
And then, there's the Abbott. It's always funny because I have all the Universal box sets, and they always have those crossover ones, and they're in each one. So every time I'm like, wait, which one has the most? And then, like, because they cross over, it's like I own the same movie 4 times now, you know, in similar box sets. But I one thing that I always love, because I mean, H.G. Wells isn't the first to talk about an invisible entity. You know, I think he definitely created the most popular one. But do you guys think it's because of the iconicness of the story and his book that the Invisible Man and becoming invisible is so associated with losing one's mind? Because I know in the movie, in the book, the chemicals and the plants that they use to become invisible drives people crazy, and that's kind of like their excuse for that. But if you notice, most invisible people become insane in these stories. Do you think there's a purpose to that, or do you think it's just an excuse to let them go unhinged?
I think it's kind of a subtext about the abuse of power. You know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. So, you know, it's like these people have been given the superpower, so of course they're going to abuse it. You know, like Griffith, you know, just turns into an evil bastard and like who kicks babies and screws up trains just because like he can. He's invisible. Who's gonna stop him? So it's all about abusing their power, and I mean, yeah, you know, some of the movies and stuff have it as like a reaction of the process or the chemical or whatever it is, which, you know, I guess is kind of more on the science or you know, like untested science or recklessness with that regard, but. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, though, the whole idea of somebody, you know, getting invisibility powers and then, you know, becoming evil because they can with it is just corruption.
Dave, what do you think?
Well, having also watched through the Hollow Man movies,
you watched both of them?
The first one I didn't watch. I just watched Hollow Man 2 last night. The first one, it was a couple months ago. But I almost feel like, I mean, I agree with the power, absolute power corrupts, but also I think it might be the fact that these invisible people see things they weren't supposed to see, because a lot of the Hollow Man movies, it goes with like jealousy of like ex-lovers kind of a thing, and that's going to drive people insane as well. Like the first Hollow Man, you know, the Kevin Bacon character starts out as a pretty good guy, but then, you know, he and this is where I almost feel like the Leigh Whannell one is going to go down this path as well, judging by what I've seen of it. It almost seems like the Invisible Man is going to go after his ex-girlfriend, you know, the way that Hollow Man went after his ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend, kind of a thing. So, yeah. So I think, yeah, I mean, I do think it's the absolute power thing more so, but it also might be on an emotional level there. It's one of those things. It's like, you know, you're better off not knowing. I think that kind of thing, you know, if you're invisible, you're in a position to see things that you're better off not knowing.
Well, and that's kind of the question I'm trying to get at is, do these stories really need and the chemical that turns them invisible also makes them crazy? Do we need that excuse?
No.
Because like you guys said,
I don't think so at all.
They're seeing things that they're not supposed to see, but also just the entire process of becoming invisible is such a mind fuck.
Well, there are so many things you can do, and so many of them are malevolent that, of course, you know, if you were invisible, you know,
tap into a few things. You're gonna try to rob a bank, maybe, or something. You know, you're gonna fuck with people. I mean, I definitely can relate to skipping down the street and just wearing pants so it looks like floating pants are skipping, or riding a bicycle. You know, like that seems all like in good nature fun, but there is a lot of aspects of like if you're fully invisible, right? And a lot of invisible movies have touched upon this. Is that your eyelids are also invisible, so you can never truly close your eyes.
Ooh.
Just never being able to close your eyes even when you go to sleep, that has to fuck with someone's mind. That's enough to drive someone insane. Or even just, you know, the constant of like not being seen. There was a prank that went viral recently where people were tricking their kids primarily into thinking that they had become invisible, and every time they would do the thing where they would like go like, oh, put the blanket on you, and then they'd pull it off and they're like, where'd they go? And they'd show like a picture taken before the prank to show them that they're invisible, and every time the kids lost it, they would break down crying. And you can look these up, they're very easy to find, but like it was such a immense reaction to not being able to be seen. Like you would think at least a couple of these kids would and a couple of them did like almost immediately run around and like try to pull like something, but then like every one of them eventually got to the point where they're like, oh my god, I can't be seen, and would just break down.
That also might be part of what drives these people crazy, is the fact, at least in Hollow Man, they couldn't get him back. You know, that's like the crux of the movie is, you know, they couldn't get him back. So that was part of the whole, you know, oh shit, you know, I'm stuck like this. So that would be part. And what I was alluding to earlier about the voice acting, Hollow Man 2, the Hollow Man character is Christian Slater.
Oh, wow.
Pre Mr. Robot Christian Slater. Post True Romance, pre Mr. Robot.
They show him in flashbacks, but for most of the movie, he's invisible and he's just doing his voice acting. But also they would show like he'd be fighting someone in the rain, because in Hollow Man 2, minor spoiler, there's a second Hollow Man that makes himself hollow, and there's an invisible fight. And they're fighting in the rain, so you could see them. And it's kind of like the Predator when his invisibility cloak doesn't move as fast as he does. So you could see these guys by the drops of rain that are on them, but then the drops of rain would fall off them. It's actually a pretty cool effect in Hollow Man 2. If you're gonna watch Hollow Man 2, watch it for the invisible fight, because
I was about to say, you're hyping up Hollow Man 2 really well for me.
You know what it is? It is, first of all, Hollow Man 2, it relies on you having seen, you do need to have seen Hollow Man to understand Hollow Man 2, or you're not going to get, it jumps you right in with there being a Hollow Man. But it turns into, he's going after this woman who has a police protection, a police bodyguard. So it turns into kind of like the Terminator, honestly, But and maybe that hypes it up for you too. It's not a great movie. It is fun, and it's for what it is. It's cool.
And like I liked a lot of aspects of Hollow Man. I mean, especially like the transformation scenes. Especially being young and when that technology was first coming out, looked so painful and awesome. Just like how like they would show his like skeleton screaming and then like the veins screaming and stuff. That was
rough. Like that part where like he's only slowly turning invisible, so like it looks like he doesn't have skin. That fucked me up.
Yeah. But I always found, like, if you're going to compare Hollow Man with Invisible Man, James Whales and the people behind the 1933 Invisible Man did a really good job in putting in the fiance and the love story. It really did humanize who he was before the experiment, and kind of gave him like a, like the reason, because he keeps saying like, no, I'm not going to be just a nobody doing all these tests for antibiotics. I'm gonna be somebody. I'm gonna get us money. I'm gonna get us in a good situation, and this is why I did all this. And so you see a lot of that human come out throughout the movie, with the fiance trying to get him to come back and stuff. Whereas Hollow Man, I love Paul Verhoeven, but like, man, he went rapey very quickly.
Yeah. The thing is with Paul Verhoeven, and you have to understand this. What I have figured out is his movies make more sense when you realize that he's a satirist. I mean, Starship Troopers, RoboCop, Showgirls even.
Oh, Showgirls especially.
Yeah, when you understand that you can't really take any of his movies totally, even Elle, which is, I mean, if you want to talk a rapey movie, Elle, if you understand that you can't take his movies at their word, then they kind of get better.
Yeah, but I get that, because like with Hollow Man, it's like, oh yeah, this is what one man would do, and Hollow is, he would explore this dark aspect of him, which is that, I mean, James Whales's guy kicks babies, Verhoeven's Invisible Man, performs sexual assault, and it's unlocking like darker sides of them that they would never do if in real life, but because of this. But again, it kind of gives it a little bit of a scapegoat. Like, is it really him and his desires? Because this chemical thing does drive him insane, and I feel like that's a little bit of a cop out with that. Like, and it's just with when it comes to those two things, and the reason why I brought up the 2 points between the two is, in the beginning, you're sympathetic with the characters, and like I feel like they did try to make Kevin Bacon a bit more sympathetic, but for him to go that far with things just makes him extremely unsympathetic, and it's like, and I guess they do the same thing with Invisible Man. I mean, he did murder like over 100 people in the train wreck in the 1933 version, so that he is a mass murderer. At that point, so there's really no like coming back from that.
Have you guys seen The Amazing Transparent Man?
No.
It's pretty cool, actually. It's from like the early 60s, and it's only like an hour long. It's one of those real quick movies that it's meant to be shown as a double feature with something else.
Right.
And it's about a dude who invented a machine to make him invisible. But in order to mass produce his machine, he needs some parts. So he hires a thief to steal these parts. And he makes the thief invisible so he could steal these parts. And it kind of plays into what you're talking about, where the once the thief is invisible, it's the power corrupts things. So there's this power struggle between the creator and the subject on it.
Speaking of other ones, remember Invisible Boy?
I don't remember Invisible Boy.
No, not really.
In 1957, they came out with Invisible Boy, aka SOS Spaceship, where it has Robbie the Robot in it. So it's kind of a sequel to Forbidden Planet, but also not really. But it's supposed to be like this lighthearted fare. And it looks insane. I've never really watched it, but it looks really weird. Where like Robbie the Robot's kind of the villain in it. The main ones that we've been discussing is the Invisible Man series and the Hollow Man series. What are some like other ones besides these two little drive-in features that are out there?
I was gonna say, not even talking about Invisible Men, but just the prospect of an invisible entity is been a terrifying concept that I feel has popped up in horror movies more than once over the years. And I mean the other most iconic invisible horror I can think of is, of course, the Predator franchise.
Yeah,
because it's like the Predator hunts these people, and he's got this camouflage technology that makes him essentially invisible, so he's able to stalk his prey, and he could be anywhere. Like in the first one, they're in the jungle, and it drives paranoia because like the Predator could be in the trees, could be in the brush, could be anywhere.
And that taps into the other terrifying aspect of an invisible person. We've been talking about essentially what happens to the invisible person and becoming crazy and giving into the absolute power. Corruption, but there's the other aspect where it's you dealing with an invisible entity or an invisible person.
Yeah.
And I think that was what really leveled the playing field, because Predator is all about assembling the most macho men ever, essentially, in the beginning with Schwarzenegger, Carl Weathers,
the bro handshake.
You son of a bitch.
Shane Black's starring in it just because they needed rewrites.
Two future governors, and Schwarzenegger and Jesse the Body.
Yeah, why didn't I say Ventura? Oh man, I am off my game today. Jesse Ventura, the ultimate. But how do you level that where you have these giant muscular dudes with like heavy armory and heavy weaponware? It's by having the ultimate predator, which is someone who can camouflage and become invisible. Like that's its main advantage over them, is that they can't see it for most of the time.
There's another one of those drive-in double feature deals called The Invisible Invaders, or maybe just Invisible Invaders, and it is it's about these aliens who are invisible, and their thing is they come down and they can take over a human being's person, so that you don't know. It's kind of like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where you don't know if you're talking. But they also do cruise around invisible, and you see like it's like the footprints in the dirt going on. You see stuff, and eventually they do capture one in a jail cell, not in a body, and they have to look at him with this infrared technology, and they can see the invisible invader in this cell. So it's kind of like a cross between Invisible Man and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I guess, because these aliens are invisible until they morph with a human.
Now I definitely need to check that out. That's so far up my alley.
Speaking of sci-fi invisible creatures, and going back to what John was saying earlier, a Forbidden Planet also can count, because they're on that alien planet, and there's the creature. I forget exactly what it was called, but I think they called it like the id monster or something, but like it's an energy creature, so it doesn't appear physically in the world. But I remember there were some pretty iconic scenes where the monster is stomping around the planet, and you can see the imprints of its feet in the ground are like breaking through the perimeter, and you can't see it.
And then it gets like electric and then you see like the outlines as like electricity bolts, right?
Yeah. So I thought that, especially for the special effects at that time, I feel like they pulled that off pretty well. And yeah, again, it's like the fear of the unknown it combined into the fear of the invisible. It's like what we can't perceive scares us.
Yeah, and what we can't see is even more terrifying. That's why you see, I don't know if definitely driving around LA right now, a lot of the billboards for the new Invisible Man is, he's in your back seat.
Yeah.
He's sitting on this bench with you, or
he's right behind you.
If you go on the Universal backlot, it's he's on the tram right now. Which is awesome. And it looks like Leigh Whannell is definitely exploring the whole being stalked by an invisible man with the new one. Again, we haven't seen it yet, so we can't.
Yeah, although it was interesting, yesterday at the Egyptian, he hosted a thrill-a-thon of movies that inspired, his take on the Invisible Man, including Fatal Attraction, Misery, Dead Calm, Gone Girl. So that all together just really shows what kind of vibe they're going for. And
so it almost seems like it's going to have kind of a Me Too vibe with like obsessive, not even lovers, obsessive stalkers.
Yeah,
because you can't really call Misery an obsessive lover or Dead Calm.
Oh no,
right.
But they're definitely obsessive
stalkers. Like it's not about love; it's about possession.
Yeah, exactly, about possession. That's a good way to put it.
Which first of all, I didn't see us talking about Forbidden Planet series this much, but also this brings up a good point. When it comes to Invisible Man stories, it's always men. There's of course the Invisible Woman, but that's a comedy. Like it's played for laughs. A lot of what she goes through with that and stuff. And what is it about turning invisible and the fear of something being invisible? It's always men. Like there's something almost primal about that, of like the fear of like them having this undaunting power and corruption and being able to be everywhere. It really does feed into a lot of fears of just like predators. That's what it is. It's the lust for power. I think that men have the lust for power more than women do. So if that's the theme you're going to explore with an Invisible Man movie, is the corruption of power, it just makes sense to have your Invisible Man be a man. Yes,
especially, because I'm not sure, if it's the case in all these movies, but a lot of it does involve stalking or, just hunting. And, and in a lot of cases, it's like these men want something, and now that they have this power, they'll just take it. So I guess there probably is something to that, to align it more to men than anything.
But it's interesting that Leigh Whannell is saying that Fatal Attraction and Misery are two of the big influences. I wonder if Elizabeth Moss is going to turn the tables on in Invisible Man. And again, this is the third time we're saying it. None of us have seen it yet. We will have by the time this posts, though.
And kind of off that note, and off of some of the other stuff we were talking about earlier, another kind of case of an invisible monster that comes to mind is The Entity. The supernatural movie from the 1980s, which was supposedly based off a real incident.
Talk about rapey.
Oh, yeah, no, that movie still like one of the scariest movies I've ever seen, because it's about this woman who is haunted, like not her house, not her residence, but she herself is haunted by this. That's the thing, you don't know if, it's not, most likely not a ghost, it's just like this horrible spirit or energy.
It's like a presence.
Presence that stalks her and repeatedly sexually assaults her over and over again. It's like one of the most brutal movies I think I've ever seen. And she can't see it, but like there are scenes where she's just standing around and it throws her across the room out of nowhere. It's very disturbing, and just the omnipresence of it is what makes it so scary. Because like at another scene, she's just driving her car and like it hits her while she's driving and almost causes her to crash.
Sounds like a hardcore movie.
Have you not seen The Entity?
No, I just thought it was another ghost story, and then you give me this description. I'm sitting here like, oh wow, this sounds interesting. And by the end of it, I'm like, I do want to see it, but god damn, that sounds like Oh, that sounds like a hard one to sit through.
Yeah.
It kind of is a ghost story, but like Jacob said, it's more than that. And it's not even clear if it is. It's like a force more than it is a ghost.
Yeah. It was kind of, on the wings of Amityville Horror and a lot of those supernatural movies from like the late 70s, early 80s. Yeah, no, just the omnipresence of this invisible force is what makes it so terrifying. And yeah, just the fact that you can't see it and it could be anywhere, that because it's invisible, so you don't know where or when it could be. Like, that's the horror of invisible malevolence.
Well, to kind of come back from that hard story of invisible people, I think one of the greatest examples of invisible people is an episode of the Adam West Batman series, which, for budgetary reasons, they made the henchmen turn invisible. So you have Batman, Robin, and Batgirl fighting invisible henchmen. And then they go so far as to Adam West Batman going, well, let's even the odds. And he shuts off the lights and everything is just a black screen with sound effects of them going ping, pow, boom for a solid few minutes. Not to undercut the intensity of the entity, but definitely want to bring it back to a better, a higher note.
Later.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say, bringing it back to a lighter note, why has it taken us this long to mention Memoirs of an Invisible Man?
Oh, yes.
John Carpenter's, comedy. It's a comedy, but it is an Invisible Man movie with Chevy Chase. And one thing I loved about Memoirs of an Invisible Man is the visual effects are so incredible in it.
All I know is I'm not a fan of Chevy Chase, and that's why that's one of the few Carpenter films I haven't seen.
But you don't even have to see him.
Yeah, but you still have to hear him.
Yeah.
And that tends to be Chevy Chase's biggest problems, is what goes out of his mouth. Just ask any of his co-stars. But yeah, it is still on my list because this is one of my favorite storylines, is Invisible People. I mean, like I said, I've been the biggest fan of the original James Whale's Invisible Man for years, and it's not just such a well-made movie, The Invisible Man, but it's a perfect excuse for James Whales to have his muse Una O'Connor, from the Frankenstein movies, just screaming like when her husband falls down the stairs and she should see me like ah.
Let's wrap this up on another happy, funny note. One of those comedy kitchen sink movies, I think it might have been, it was either Amazon Women on the Moon or Kentucky Fried Movie. I think it was
Amazon Women on the Moon. Oh, I know what you're about to talk about.
Was it Ed Begley that plays
yes.
And
the son of the Invisible Man.
Yeah, but he's not invisible, but he thinks he is, so he's running around with just a shirt on. He's naked from the waist down. He's all, ever see a shirt, make a telephone call? And people are like, oh, now he thinks he's invisible again. And then he takes off all his clothes and he's walking around naked, and he thinks he's invisible, but people are like, oh, there he goes again, walking around naked.
Yeah, and they're just feeling embarrassed for him instead of scared.
Which is also kind of like the invisible, I forget what was his name in Mystery Men. Keenan or Kel Mitchell's character.
Kel Mitchell's. I think just Invisible Boy.
Invisible Boy. He only can turn invisible when no one's looking.
Yes.
Which sounds like the most useless superpower ever, but it comes in, it helps him out towards the end.
Isn't Janine Garofalo, didn't she say something like, maybe you should try putting some pants on if you're going to fight crime today?
Yes, that was her line. That was like a trailer line.
All right, let's call it a wrap on our Invisible Man discussion here.
Yeah.
So we're all going to see The Invisible Man. So your homework is to see The Invisible Man. Not really, but you guys will all have seen it by the time this episode posts.
Which, first of all, no, I think we should. First of all, we're not getting paid by Universal for this, but everyone should go out to go see Invisible Man when it comes out. Because let's remember what we almost had. And this was something that I debated on catching up, but we almost had the Dark Universe Superman, which would have been an over-budgeted, could never be able to tell the quality of it, but we almost had an invisible Johnny Depp for a second there. And instead, we're getting what looks like to be a very interesting, very different take on the Invisible Man mythos. So I think everyone should go out and support modest budget high concept horror, especially when it comes to reinventing and rebooting classics. So, yeah, that is your homework today, people. Go out and see The Invisible Man this week, and also go support lower budget horror on video on demand and through other means.
I still want to see Russell Crowe's Dr. Jekyll, though. I'm not giving up on the Dark Universe completely because I think he would be he was an awesome Dr. Jekyll. I want to see him in his own movie.
Yeah, but I agree with John's point. Like, if you want to see the kind of horror, especially this quality of horror, you got to vote with your wallet because that's the only way the studios are going to listen. So if you want more stuff like The Invisible Man, you gotta go pay for a ticket.
Yeah,
which is why Jacob saw Underwater 3 times.
Hell yeah, I did.
He voted with his wallet.
I was about to say,
times.
I think Jacob is like the ultimate champion of like voting with your wallet. I mean, how many times did you see Mandy, Battle Angel, and now VFW and Bliss? You just said you saw those movies 3 times.
Oh, I've seen them. Well, I've seen some of those more than 3 times.
Well, I'm just saying you saw VFW and Bliss 3 times now,
Yep.
right?
Oh yeah,
in theaters.
Because I support the arts.
Yeah, he does.
Yes. Cool. Well, our theme song is Restless Spirit, so go support their art and go rock and roll with them. And our artwork is by Chris Fisher, so go support his art because I haven't heard what's been going on with his Rogue Bounty movie lately, but he always needs support in what he does. So go give him some support. Where can we find you guys on the socials, Jacob?
You can find me on Twitter at Jacob Davison _. That is at JACOBDAVISON _. And you can find some stuff, horror stories I've written on the horror anthology podcast Dead Time Stories for Ranker.
Cool. And you, Korea?
And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Korean Barbecue. That's CORREIAN BBQ. Also, my AIM handle was Invisible Man. I just remembered that with like a series of numbers after it. God, remember AIM? And you can also find me on Stardust, where now I'm thinking of rewatching Hollow Man and now watching Hollow Man 2. So you might see some reviews for those up soon. And if I hate them, we can all blame James.
Hey, I'm curious to see what you think of Hollow Man 2 because I surprisingly enjoyed it. And I didn't think I was going to. It was just kind of the bonus feature on my Hollow Man disc that I got. I have that Mill Creek twofer that you could get for like $3 at Fry's a few years back. So
nice.
I never watched Hollow Man 2 until last night. Me, you can find on Twitter at Cinema Ferite. That's like verite, but with fear. So it's FEARITE. And you can find all 3 of us at the Eye on Horror Facebook page, the iHorror Facebook page, or at iHorror.com, which is where we all call home. And we will see you next time. So for me, James J. Edwards.
I'm Jacob Davison.
And I'm Jonathan Correa.
Keep your eye on horror.